really, this is the word that God gave me when I began making all this content and began this media outreach of our ministry, and that is this. He said, the people are coming. And, you know, I don't have a lot of insight on all the current events and, you know, all of the post-pandemic news and who's doing what and when, and you get that everywhere else. But I do know this. I'm sure as I'm sitting here, the people are coming. I began to make new series and new content that I really didn't need 5 years ago. And I would make one series after another, and some of them we still haven't gotten to. Man, they're coming. But as I began to make all these series, I prayed. I said, Lord, I don't need all this new content. What is this all for? And He spoke to me as clear as ever, and He said, the people are coming, and when the people come, they're going to need this material. And it makes sense. If the people are coming, you don't want to wait till they get there. I mean, if you were going to provide a dinner for a lot of guests, you wouldn't wait till they arrived and said, oh, let me fix something for you to eat. It wouldn't be very good if you waited till the last minute and just threw something together. So we have been preparing and seasoning and steeping and stewing and smoking, and we have prepared content like never in my life. And I'll show you some of that as we go along this week. But that brings me to today's series, and I'm calling it Prepare to Meet Your Maker. As I've prepared series after series and book after book, I realized as I actually made this series, it's called Forgiven or Not. We're going to do this one directly after we finish this one. But as I finished the Forgiven or Not series, I realized that everything I have is designed for Christians. And that's really my calling, is to teach the body and to help people grow up and live for God and serve God. But I realized I don't have anything for non-believers. And I prayed about it. And immediately when I finished the series Forgiven or Not, the Lord gave me a message for non-believers. And I want to lead you through this. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, because the majority of my audience is not only born again, but you want to live for God, and you're looking for deeper truths, you're looking for revelation, and I get that. But if you will allow me this week to talk about this subject, I believe it will impact you and your friends and loved ones that aren't born again, that aren't saved. And so as the Lord gave me that message, I mean, if I could take this book and put it here, this is for non-believers, and I have a mountain of material now, plus 580 TV shows, plus hundreds of YouTube videos, lots of audio series, lots and lots of articles. All of those things are designed for non-believers. And the truth of the matter is, if somebody's not saved, if they're not a Christian, there are only a few things they need to know. Everything else is immaterial. I mean, you could learn everything I have to say and repeat it, teach it better than I could. But if you're not born again, if you're not saved, it really makes no difference. And so this little booklet has really resonated with the churches that I've been to since I printed it. It's very, very new, and I call it Prepare to Meet Your Maker. And the question right on the front of the book is, are you ready for eternity? Now, I have attempted, I believe the Lord has helped me to present this to our modern generation. We're dealing with people that are very offendable, if you haven't noticed. It's the most confusing time I've ever been alive. People seem to have the thinnest skin ever. I mean, people are so, they're so offendable, and yet, if you look at the secular world, they're so offensive, and they don't seem to care. They offend people like me that have conservative Christian values every day, all day long. But one little word or sentence or phrase that they don't like, it's like the end of the world. So we're dealing with a different culture. And I have attempted to take this material and present it to atheists, agnostics, people that have given up on religion, people that have no use for God, people that would be offended per se if you were to call them sinners. I don't use that term in this book, and I encourage you to stop using some of these old terms. Not that it isn't true, but it doesn't resonate. They don't know what sin is. I mean, we are dealing with a culture that is non-religious. So sin doesn't even compute with them. So when I mention people in the book, it's non-believers. I think that more accurately identifies our audience when it comes to being saved and becoming a Christian. They're non-believers. So I've met some people even over the last few years that are agnostic, or they don't believe in God. They're atheist. And I literally wrote this book as if I was sitting down and talking to them and telling them, you know, what's most important, in my opinion, from my standpoint as a preacher, what do they need to know? And I've put it in the book, and there's also 4 truths that I've covered in the book, and I'm going to give you all of this up front today, and we'll spend the next few days covering these truths more in depth. But I believe this is going to really help you have a feel for reaching non-believers, those that aren't Christian, in your sphere of influence. So let's get into the teaching. I begin it this way. We're going to take a period of time and talk logically. I'm going to try to meet them intellectually. Not long, but for a few minutes, I'm going to ask questions that I believe are important to ask. They're not offensive. It's not going to put people, you know, I don't know, anybody has the freedom to witness however they want, but I think walking up to somebody on the street and say, do you know where you're going to go when you die, is a little bit over the top, especially in this culture. Now, if it works for you, fine. I just have never been able to get any results that way. I've chosen to do it a little bit differently. So the questions that I'm going to ask up front are to stimulate their mind. Obviously, we want to transition to talk to their heart. And I'm not going to argue whether there is a God or not. That's not, you know, you just want to bypass that and talk to their heart. And because their heart is going to, you have to know this, that even non-believers, non-Christians, they have a spirit that is attuned to truth. They can, if they will, recognize truth when you speak to their heart. And that was one of the things that people said about Jesus in New Testament times. They said, never a man spoke like this man. So what was different about him? Well, he was the Son of God. Yeah, but he spoke spiritual truths to their hearts. And they probably never had that happen before. And so they said, never a man spake like this man. I believe we need to take all things into consideration and have an answer for non-Christians. So we start this way, and I'm going to read some of this because I took so much time to write it. I don't want to butcher it, you know, by trying to quote it. I'm going to read some of these things that I've written so that you kind of know where we're coming from, and then we'll comment. But the book title is Prepare to Meet Your Maker, and that may be a little bit in your face, but so what, I like the title. And we open it with this: most people spend years preparing for retirement, and they actually spend much more of their life preparing for retirement than the retirement itself lasts. Now, if you just retired, I'm not trying to scare you, but really, some people spend 40 years preparing for retirement, and then they spend whatever the rest of their life is in retirement. So that's a very understandable statement. Retirement, some people make plans for their death by prepaying and pre-planning their funeral a long time before it ever happens. Long-term care is something people will invest in, and they don't really know if they're going to need it or not, but they don't want to be a burden. They want to make sure that that's covered. And that's important. I'm not discounting any of these things. I think it's being responsible. I think all of us need to prepare ourselves so that when we're older in life, we don't have to depend on somebody else to take care of us or to pay our bills. So it's just being responsible. On the other hand, many people don't spend 1 minute preparing for eternity. Isn't that a powerful thought?
Are you ready for the single most important moment of your existence? In this mini-book, you'll discover the 4 truths everyone needs to know before they pass into eternity. Written for both Christians and non-Christians alike, you can get your copy today at gregfritz.org.